All right, so we're gonna get started. Obviously, I think a very successful morning. We had I had a lot going on today. With bowl prep and also National Signing Day. We were able to get 19 guys to join the brotherhood, and we're looking to sign 24. So we've got a few more spots left, and we strategically doing that. We want to make sure we hold on to those as we move forward. But what we actually got exactly what we set out for to start out with the December period here, and I think we did a good job of setting up what we wanted on offense and what we wanted on defense, and then also being able to add a specialist into this, which I think will be big. Will be big for next year with some more competition in that area. Again, trying to take where we are in Statesboro, Georgia, and make sure we're recruiting, the local areas of the states that touch our state and our state. But, being able to get 11 players from the state of Georgia, 3 from Alabama, 2 from Florida, North Carolina, Louisiana, South Carolina. I mean, that's the big piece, just trying to make sure that we get guys that understand what Georgia Southern football is about. And I think we did that with this class, and I do think that we've upgraded significantly as we move forward and continue to try to build our program. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Chad, you wanted to save a couple of spots for February, but which guys out of this class did you say, okay, we have to have these guys right now?
Well, the one that we ended up getting last night was Derwin Burgess. He was a guy that, Coach Whitley had done a tremendous job recruiting him and building a relationship with him. He was a guy that we decided to go ahead and, move forward with when he, said that he wanted to come to Georgia Southern. But let's also understand this, signing day is really for the high school guys. We don't start school till January 11th. And so there's still the possibility of adding transfers in that could get in January. So we do have a few spots left that we may look at that. We may take it all the way to the February signing date. We just got to see how that's going to play out. But I think it would have been a big mistake to fill up during December. I think we've got to make sure that we're strategic moving forward, especially with the new transfer rule that's probably going to pass in January.
Coach, could you comment on James Graham now that it's become official?
James is a guy that we actually recruited out of high school. He was a guy that we offered very early. Really, when we had offered J.D. King, James was a guy that, that we had kind of pinpointed as a guy that we wanted for our program. And as it moved forward, Georgia Tech ended up getting him. Now that Coach Johnson's not there and, James felt like he needed a new start, new place to go, and had several places that he definitely could have chosen. But I think he felt like that Georgia Southern was going to be a great fit for him. I think that he saw the opportunity to come in and possibly be the starter, work for it and try to get it and be that guy and be a quarterback. I know there were other schools that were recruiting him as a quarterback, but a lot of schools that were recruiting him as an athlete. And I think he saw the opportunity to play quarterback here. And then I think it was a big piece of reuniting, possibility with J.D. King, if that does come to fruition later on, So I think that he felt like it was a really good fit for him. And, I know his mom was excited to make sure he stayed in the state of Georgia and be close and be able to see him play.
There's some other guys that were his teammates at Georgia Tech that seem like they would fit in your offense. Have any of those guys reached out, and are those any possibilities of your January signees that you're talking about?
Well, obviously, I can't comment on any of those guys, but there are, there are guys that are, that are in the transfer portal that are guys that, we have looked at to say this would be a good fit for our offense. So I would not rule that out. But again, I can't comment on them right now. But yes, for sure, there's definitely guys that we would definitely look at, especially if they're a good fit for us.
Coach, can you just talk about or how difficult it was to recruit some of these guys during a pandemic, and how much you've gotten to actually talk to some of these guys?
Really hard. I'm a relationship type of guy, and the phone is fine, the FaceTime's fine, the Zoom's fine, but it's just something about being able to sit down and talk with somebody, and really get a good feel for them. Because if you set up a Zoom call, I mean, everybody's gonna comb their hair except for Captain, and you're gonna make sure that you're ready, very presentable and ready to go. I'm just kidding, Captain, man. Don't get upset with me. But at least you got hair to comb, right? But
it's a bad hair day, bad haircut. I'm sorry.
But I just, it's hard because you want to get a good feel for people. You want to know what they are truly. And but I do think that we've signed some guys that really fit us. I think that they understand what a Georgia Southern man is and should be. We've talked at length about what we expect here and what they have to come in and do, and so I feel comfortable in that. But I do miss the face-to-face interaction. I miss the hanging out piece and really, getting to know somebody. So it is hard, and we're going to continue to try to get better at it. I know the dead period is still all the way through April, so it's still going to be tough in those areas, but we got to be diligent in making sure that we're getting face-to-face contact with them, whether it is by Zoom or FaceTime.
Speaking of recruiting amid the pandemic, when you're seeing these student athletes post pictures of them signing and just how different it looks, what is that like for you to see as a head coach? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do think that they miss the experience of the visits. They miss the experience of the official visit. And we're going to try to be very strategic. I know Butler's going to talk with y'all in a little bit, our director of player personnel. But when these guys start to report to school, because a lot of our guys are mid-year guys that are going to be able to come in January, when they report, the couple of days before school starts, we're going to try to do something for them. We're going to try to at least make it like an official visit so that they can experience that. The other piece that I think really, lack of a better word, sucks is the opportunity to go see games and see the game day atmosphere. Luckily we've had a few that have been able to do it, get their own tickets and sit in the stands and watch a game. But it's just different because normally, we'd have 100 to 150 recruits at each game. And also too, the ability to have younger guys, the 22 class, the 23 class, them to be able to come in and watch our game day atmosphere. Because lots of times that's where you really start those relationships. I know we just signed the 21 class, but lots of times you've already started the 22 relationship because guys have come to games. So I think missing out on those types of visits and then also to the game day atmosphere is something that we really miss.
Coach James was able to be there for the game day atmosphere at the App State game. What did were you guys able to talk at all about what he thought about the atmosphere there for the App State game?
Yes, we did talk. I thought he said he was very impressed with it. I think that, I know that he was leaning toward us before the game. And I think he wanted to get a vibe, see what the vibe was like to play at Georgia Southern. And obviously he had talked to J.D. King and he talked to Kerryon Smith and the guys that we have from 229 area, Fitzgerald area. But there's nothing like feeling it and seeing it in person. And, I thought that once the game was over and we talked a little bit, I do think it impressed him.
Your offensive line, you only signed 3 guys. One was Chaz Collins from Statesboro, obviously a tall guy. The other 2, 6'2", 270 to 290-ish. I know I've talked to you about this before, about quick linemen versus big linemen. I know you'd like to get both, but as far as your offensive line, what are you looking for?
Well, the big piece is, and you know what, I think Chaz is another piece to the tall athletic tackles that we're looking for, not necessarily the mass guys. We want guys that can get out into the perimeter and be able to block in space, whether it's a DB or it's a linebacker running out, because in our option game, we've got to be able to get that tackle up in a loop scheme type thing to get up on DBs, get up on a safety, fast moving linebackers. So, Chaz was impressive, but because before the pandemic hit, and we were still in a recruiting period that we could go out, I believe it was last January, we were able to go watch basketball games. And, obviously we couldn't have any contact with Chaz, but we were able to watch him play. And we watched how athletic he was on the basketball court. And we also watched how physical he played basketball, which I think is important too. And then, I do think that he's a guy that will take some time. Obviously we've got to start, working with him and making sure that, he understands the college, the speed of college football and how that game will work. But I do think he's athletic enough to come in and start getting those reps. And we've recruited some guys like that, like a Vernil Henshaw, a Kalen Williams. We're starting to get that for our tackle spots. But then when you look at our other two guys, maybe not as tall, but more of a mass guys, but are quick and tough. When you look at Seaburn Hines and Caleb Cook, first thing that comes to my mind is tenacity. They kind of got that grit about them, that dog in them. And I think we need that on our offensive line. The other piece to it is we're not losing many offensive linemen next year. And, we didn't want to oversign at that position. Now, if we do take any others, I think we would look more into a transfer type guy, somebody that's already played college football.
Coach, obviously
Coach,
there's the guys like Derwin and James that everybody knows about, but who's a guy in this class that really isn't getting talked about as much that you think could be special at Georgia Southern?
Well, I tell you, I mean, there's a few guys, and looking at my list right now, if I really had one guy that kind of jump out, that I think he's a really good football player is Nick Mercer from Crisp County. If you watch that guy play, you watch his film. I mean, he is definitely what Georgia Southern has had over the years on defense, and even like a Davion Rhodes, Chewy Rhodes at Pelham. Just South Georgia guys that are just love ball and will really go play hard for you and do a great job. The other one that I'm very excited about that again probably didn't get a lot of attention is like a Miles Winslow. Remind me a lot of Raymond Johnson coming out of high school. Long, skinny guy that can really grow into that body that Raymond has grown into. So he's definitely another guy that really jumps out to me.
Coach, you signed a couple quarterbacks last year. Already had a couple on the roster, and then you signed two more in James and Cam. What were you looking for in that quarterback position, and looking to replace or looking to complement Shai Werts and Justin Tomlin?
Well, I think the big piece to it is, as you can see from this year, I mean, having depth at quarterback is important. And, we felt like, with Justin, I think, Justin can definitely be the starter of this football team next year. But again, you've got to have somebody ready to go. If he is the starter, you got to have somebody behind him. If James comes in and he becomes the starter, then, obviously Justin's a good go-to guy also. If we ever want to get into a situation where we want to change it up and play two quarterbacks, you've got the ability to do that. But I think it's important that we build the depth in that room because they're more than just a quarterback. I mean, they're a running back. They're, the ball is in their hands every play. And when we're running the option, he could be the running back, or he's got to pitch it, or he's got to give it, or he's got to throw it, So we've got to have the ability to make sure we build depth in that room and have dynamic playmakers along the way too.
Coach, not to disparage your current kicking situation and your specialist, but Britton Williams comes with I mean, just happened to see him play myself. He's got a huge leg. I know that he's a pretty good athlete as well. How big was it? I know he was getting some other offers out there. How big was it to bring him in?
Well, it was huge because we were really only recruiting two guys. There was two kickers from the state of Georgia that we were recruiting, and then we had other guys on the list, but there were two guys in Georgia that we were really trying to go after. You know, the University of Georgia ended up getting the other guy that we were recruiting, and you know, to me, they were both the same. I was like, if we can get either one, this will be big time for us. And you know, we were able to get Britton, and I'm glad he decided that this was a good fit for him. That's what we need. I mean, we need competition at the kicker spot. You know, I do. You know, I know a lot of people think that we dropped off because of Young Wei Koo, Tyler Bass, and now. But again, Young Wei Koo and Tyler Bass were freshmen at one time too, and you know, they had to get better as they grew in their role. And I'm not disappointed in Alex Rayner. I'm not disappointed in Dylan Lewis. I just think they're freshmen, and there's times that they've made good plays, and there's times that they didn't make plays. And we've got to get them more consistent. But I think being able to bring Britton in obviously now allows us competition. And so when you have competition like that, that should breed for more excellence in what we're doing. But this was a big time get for us because he does have a strong leg, and looking forward to what he can bring to us.
In your kicking game on the kickoffs, are you trying to not kick it into the end zone? Is that the plan? And if it was a struggle to get it into the end zone, I know that Britton can do that pretty consistently.
Yeah, my philosophy is to kick touchbacks. I don't even want to even mess around with it. So it's not that we're not trying to kick it through the end zone. Just right now we don't have the leg strength. And you know, again, we still got to put things in perspective. Normally we have an off season with those guys, and we're able to work them out, get them stronger, you know, leg strength, all that type of stuff. And I do think Dylan Lewis and I think Alex Rayner both will get even stronger with their leg because they are both freshmen. And I think that will happen. You know, Britton comes in with already having leg strength, and, you know, obviously he can develop and be even stronger as it goes. But my philosophy would be try to kick touchbacks every time, because that's less time that you have to put into a coverage work. And, you know, last week when we gave up that kickoff return, I mean, the big problem is you always want to have height over distance. You got to hang the ball in the air longer. So yes, I would want touchbacks, but I definitely want height on the kick, because height on the kick allows your kickoff team to be able to get down there and make the play if it is not a touchback. So we'll spend time making sure we emphasize that during the off season and try to get that better.
All right,
Chad,
guys.
Andrew Johnson announcing within the last few days that he was coming to Georgia Southern caught a lot of people's attention. How did that come about to get him from Oregon back to Georgia?
Well, that's another one that, you know, just like James, just like J.D. King coming from Oklahoma State, that was another guy that we had, you know, had a prior relationship with, that we recruited out of high school. Coach Rowell did a tremendous job with that, you know, had a connection there. And, you know, when Andrew decided to leave Oregon, you know, Georgia Southern was somewhere he was interested in, and he reached out to us. We, you know, obviously started talking, and just so happened it ends up, you know, him and James are actually kin to one another, cousins, and you know, they were very you know, familiar with each other, and, you know, thought about maybe playing together. But you know, if James wasn't assigned, we would have took Andrew anyway. If Andrew wasn't assigned, we would have took James anyway. But luckily for us, we would be able to get both. And you know, he's going to bring some added depth to you know, to our outside linebacker spots. You know, depending on what Randy Wade ends up doing, if Randy decides to come back or if he leaves, you know, that's a spot that we definitely need to make sure we build our depth with, you know, with Quinn and Jalen Jackson. You know, we want to make sure that we got guys that can roll in and out at that dog position.
Coach, you go down to your old stomping grounds at Georgia Military and you get McAfee. He's 6'3", 215. Seems pretty big for a wide receiver. Is he somebody who might also play some tight end or H-back?
Definitely could. I would not say that that's what we're going to do with him when he gets here, but he does have a body frame to do that. And so anytime you recruit somebody, you want them to be able to play multiple positions in case the position you're recruiting for doesn't work out, or you end up, having more depth at another position. But I also felt like with JJ is something that we, haven't had since Mark Mashad left, is just that bigger wide receiver that maybe you can get a red zone matchup, throw a jump ball up to. If you go back and you think about Mark Mashad making those 2 catches against Coastal in back-to-back plays in overtime, being able to have that ability, I think is important, but also having that physical body out there on the perimeter to really swallow up smaller DBs and help our blocking in the perimeter also. And, what I really like about him, I think he's a raw talent. I think he's going to grow into a really awesome receiver. But I just love his aggressiveness and how physical he is. I mean, he loves to block. He loves to get after people. And I felt like we needed a big body guy out there on the perimeter.
Have you talked to any of these guys about, possibly enrolling in January or more than leaning towards, finishing out the rest of the year?
Yeah, right now, we're Derwin Burgess is probably a guy that we can get in January. Caleb Cook, Tyrell Davis. I'm just going down my list real quick. McLeod, Isaac Walker, Miles Winslow, and then obviously, James and Andrew. Those are guys that we're trying to get here in January. And anytime that you can get someone here early and get them through 15 practices of spring ball, that gives you a leg up of having them ready to play the following year. Sure. All right. Well, if that's all the questions y'all got, I'm gonna let Butler come on over. And Butler Benton is our director of player personnel. He joined us late summer. Has done a tremendous job for us. Has really taken our recruiting to a new level. And I think it's important that y'all kind of get to know him because he has changed the game for us. And excited to have him on our staff. And again, appreciate y'all getting on, and thank y'all, and GATA.